questions live on Mogul.
Oh,
So
good.
millions of users submitting questions at the moment.
Oh, fantastic. Oh, God.
But they have the capability of uploading the comments, the questions, so that ultimately the ones that got most uploaded are going to be the ones that get asked in this podcast.
I hope mine got uploaded.
Oh, we're live. Hi, we're live. How are you? Welcome to Yahoo.
We're so honored to be here with you and to have you on Ask Mogul Anything today. You're such a legendary journalist, and we're so excited to have our millions of users have the opportunity now to ask you any questions about life, career, your journey. So thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome. Thanks so much for coming. This is exciting, and congratulations on everything that you've been able to accomplish at the ripe old age of 29. Very annoying, but as everyone knows, Tiffany, what you told me, you had 5,000 employees worldwide now working for Mogul, and I think you've obviously done a lot in a short period of time, so congratulations. My hat's off to you.
Thank you so much. Again, a huge honor to be here with you today.
Oh, cut it out. Go ahead. Are you getting many questions?
Yeah, absolutely. So each week, Mogul's platform reaches 18 million women each week around the world, all 186 countries, 31,000 cities, and so many of them are so excited to be here with you, to be able to ask you questions. So they've been submitting all these questions right now this hour. And the very first user that's trending on this particular post is Mandy Reed, and her question is, "Hi Katie, I always admired your work as a news anchor. What was the most difficult story you had to cover, and how did you keep your cool under such pressure?"
Gosh, well, I've been doing this, Mandy, for a very long time, so I've had a lot of stories that have been difficult to cover. I think probably when there's breaking news and it's a sad story involving a lot of human tragedy and loss, so of course 9/11 I think was one of the most challenging days of my life and career, because I think in real time, everybody at NBC News, where I was at the time, we were learning what had unfolded, and it was so, the magnitude of the disaster was so enormous. We knew the magnitude in terms of kind of the buildings, but we didn't know how that translated into loss of human life, who was responsible. So covering it in real time and trying to keep calm yourself, because, you know, like everyone New Yorker who lives in New York, but also everyone who lives in the United States and really around the world, everybody was worried about their loved ones. They were worried about people, of course, they didn't know and what this meant. And so that was a very, very stressful, nerve-wracking day. And I had to, while I was upset and worried, and I had to stay calm and carry on, as they say, and really try to ascertain information I was getting to make sure it was accurate and reliable, and it was just breaking so quickly. But I think that was probably the most challenging story I've ever had to cover in my career.
Very traumatic time.
Yeah, you know, there have been other hard stories, like when I went to Columbine after the school shooting there in Littleton, Colorado. That was very difficult, because I think anytime you're interviewing people who are in the throes of grief and terrible loss, whose emotions are so intensely raw, it's very hard, because I think you feel like a caretaker in addition to an interviewer, because you don't want to lose sight at all of your humanity, and it's really, you're there to help them stay collected enough that they can share their story. So that can be a very challenging and also gut-wrenching experience if you're a reporter and you're talking to people about a tremendous personal loss. I think they're clearing up the dishes from lunch. Sorry if there's noise back there.
Our next user, Aisha Khan, says, "Hi Katie, if you had any, how do you like to spend your free time? Do you have a hobby?"
You know, I like to play the piano. I love going to Broadway shows. I like going to movies. I saw The Girl on a Train last night. I thought Emily Blunt was really good, but people were laughing at all the wrong times in the theater, which I thought was interesting. Like really scary times, they would start laughing. But anyway, so I like films. I like, as I said, going to Broadway Broadway shows. I play a little tennis. I try to exercise. I actually clean my house because I'm totally a slob, and so in my free time I have to make up for all the times that I've just put things somewhere, and I'm a bit of a hoarder, so I spend some of my time cleaning. And you know, I like to talk to my friends. I have a lot of friends from all the way from high school to people I've worked with through the years, and I think friendships take time and nurturing. And so I like to spend time on the phone talking to my friends. But you know, the usual, I like to spin when I can, but I've fallen off the wagon a little bit on that. And yeah, no, I'm a flywheel girl. I know that the world is divided, not only politically, but between flywheel and soul cycle. And my friend Bruce started flywheel, so I'm very loyal to her. But soul cycle's fun too. My daughters are more soul cycle, and I'm more flywheel.
Wonderful. Next one comes in from booklover423. Hi Katie, so great to have you answering our questions. My question to you is, do you ever have any moments of self-doubt? Or did you along the way in building your career? And if so, what did you do to push through it?
Every day I have moments of self-doubt. I think it's natural for us to all feel insecure and doubt ourselves and wonder if we did the right thing, or you know, did we ask the right questions, or how do we conduct ourselves in a certain situation. And I think you know, everyone has these nagging self-doubts, but I think you just have to persevere and try to accentuate the positive and focus on what you're doing right versus what you're doing wrong, while acknowledging, you know, and I think introspection is a really important quality. You should kind of think about, well, what could I have done better in that situation, or how could I improve the next time I'm faced with this. But you know, I think we all are insecure. I think that people who say they're not just are lying. And you know, I think that it's kind of keeping it in its proper place. And as I said, acknowledging it, learning from it, and then trying to push forward. And I'm very good at compartmentalizing as well, which I think has been extremely helpful for me professionally and personally.
Absolutely. Next one comes in from Sally22. Hi Katie, what's your approach to finding a work-life balance? How have you balanced the demands of family with career?
Well, you know, I never think of, you know, it's funny. My work is my life, and my life is my work. And, you know, having said that, I mean, I think in some ways my work is my raison d'etre, but I, of course, am very committed to my family. So I just see it as it falling in line. My daughters, I think, appreciated the fact that I worked, that I was contributing out in the world, and I was trying to model behavior for them, because they can do whatever they want, but I'd like them to have a profession. I really believe it's very important for women to be independent financially and otherwise. And so, you know, I hope that they have careers, even if they drop out or decrease their workload, if they want to focus on their family a little bit more. But I've always really, really loved my work, and I think loving my work makes me a happier person in my life. And so when my girls were little, I think it's a little less on my mind now, because my kids are grown, and one is in college and one is working. But I used to just sometimes calibrate how I spent my time. And if I had a particularly demanding work schedule, then at night I would make sure I didn't have plans socially. I think if anything suffered in the quote-unquote work-life balance, it was sort of my social life. So, you know, I really was happy working hard, putting in long hours, but then when I was home, I really wanted to be home and focused on my kids. And I had the added pressure of, you know, since my husband died, trying to have kind of a social life and trying to have some adult company and, you know, even a romantic life. It sounds so cheesy, but you guys know what I mean. And so trying to balance all those things was really, really difficult. Sometimes I got it wrong, but I also believe that you have to, you know, nobody's going to get the recipe or the equation perfectly day in and day out. Sometimes you have to kind of yourself and say, you know, I maybe struck the wrong balance here. I'm going to make up for it here. I don't think it's a, you know, I think it's a constantly dynamic and fluid opportunity to make your priorities each and every day. And if you didn't get it right one day, you can get it right the next.
Absolutely. I think we're on the same page about that. Essentially not work-life balance, but work-life integration.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you're so smart. See, work-life integration. I mean, I think the work-life balancing has become so hackneyed also, and the whole concept of it. But and it's just one more thing to feel guilty about. So, you know, I think there are ways, as I said, to calibrate it and revisit it and just like think about it. And if it doesn't feel right to you, then probably you're spending too much time. And well, you probably won't feel bad about spending too much time in your life, but you might actually. You might feel like your work is suffering. So I think it's something you kind of know in your gut.
The next one comes in from user Miranda444. If you could meet your 13-year-old self, what advice would you give her? And how about your 21-year-old self?
I think my 13-year-old self, I'd say, don't sublimate your ambitions because you think it's not cool to be a strong, smart, ambitious person, male or female. You know, when I was growing up, I think it was very typical, and that's why single-sex education is something that I wanted my daughters to be involved in. And then in high school, they went to a co-ed school, but sometimes you feel you start to retreat academically. I don't know if you had this experience, but apparently not, since she went to Yale and Harvard Business School, so I don't think she retreated academically. But I think in my era, it was quite common for women to kind of take a back seat, or for it not to seem quote-unquote feminine to be, you know, to really have an impressive academic life. And so I think if I had to do it over again, I'd say to my 13-year-old self, focus on learning, focus on your studies. Don't worry so much. I was one of those kids who wanted to be liked, who wanted to be popular, and sometimes I don't think that was necessarily something that went hand in hand with being academically oriented. I think it's changed some. So that's what I would say to my 13-year-old self, like really stay the course and learn. You know, take advantage of school and don't goof off, don't procrastinate. I was an okay student, but I didn't take advantage of what I was learning as much as I could have. My 21-year-old self, I would say, you know, really don't let the bastards get you down. You know, I think that there are a lot of naysayers, and this is something that my 21-year-old self told me. You know, I think there are a lot of people who are naysayers who try to throw obstacles in your way, who say, for whatever reason, you know, you don't fit the bill for what you are wanting to do. But I think that with perseverance and hard work, I mean, as corny as it sounds, I do think people, if they're willing to put in the time, you know, the perspiration as much as the inspiration, you can really achieve great things. Having said that, I also think it's important to take a good, honest look at your skills, what you're good at, and what you want to do, and the Venn diagram of those two things coming together, what you love and what you're good at. Because you could love something and not be good at it. Now, I think it's possible, as I said, with enough hard work and effort, you can become good at it, because I was terrible as a TV reporter when I started out. I mean, I was awful. But I really do adhere to Malcolm Gladwell's claim that to become good at anything, it takes 10,000 hours. And I think, you know, and if after that you're still not good, you should find something else to do.
Now you're the world's top news anchor.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, thank you for saying that. It's your opinion, but thank you.
And so next user comes in. Their question is from Glass Half Full 100. What has
I love these answers. Glass half full 100.
What has been the biggest lesson you've learned in terms of heartbreak?
Heartbreak. That we're all much more resilient than we could ever imagine. You know, I've had my share of heartbreak and disappointments throughout my life and career, and I would say that, you know, say this when I'm talking to people about grief, that Thomas Jefferson said, even though I think this had to do with government rather than life, that the earth is made for the living. And I think that, when we have setbacks, heartbreak, we just have to really dig deep and realize that we all have a limited amount of time here on the planet, and we have to make the most of it. And I know when my husband died, I was 41, that he would not have wanted, obviously I grieved and grieved deeply, but I think he would not have wanted my life to end or to rob any kind of spirit and enjoyment out of life, because he wasn't there to enjoy it with me. So I think you rely on your friends. I had great friends. I relied on my family. Never forget when my dad was, Jay had to have some operation in this horrific 9-month period of time after he'd been diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And I went into New York Hospital, and there's my dad sitting right by the elevator. And it was so moving for me that he didn't tell me he was coming up from Virginia. He just showed up to be with me. So I feel very blessed that I have incredible parents and siblings and friends who really helped me get through this. And so I would say rely on your friends. And when they say, what can we do for you? Tell them. Because I think people say that, but they don't really necessarily mean it, or they don't know how to help. So I always say whenever anyone is suffering or they have a sick family member, or, you say to them, can I take your kids for a walk? Can I go to the grocery store for you? I mean, come up with really specific things you can do that would help them in their lives. And if you say anything I can do, please tell me, you should mean it. And you should be willing to do those things that will make their life better in a really difficult time.
So beautiful. Thank you for that advice. Ethan Singh, our next user, says, hi Katie, what inspired you to go into journalism and become a news anchor? What advice would you have for any aspiring journalists?
Hi. Well, my dad, my aforementioned dad, my wonderful dad, worked in newspapers and was a political reporter for the Atlanta Constitution. Before that, the Macon Telegraph, that's in Georgia too, and United Press, before it became UPI, United Press International. And my dad was just a very brilliant, well-read, erudite person who could talk about anything, really just a variety of subjects with such authority and knowledge. And I think that I got my interest in writing from him and reporting, and I think he realized I'm very outgoing. I think I got that more from my mom than my dad, and my mom gave me a sense of confidence, I think, from the unconditional love that she gave me, that I could do anything. And she was very, not stage mothery, but very kind of appropriately, I thought, ambitious for her kids. She had 4 children. And so I thought the combination of interacting with people and being able to write and tell stories. I'm a fairly visual person, so television appealed to me for that reason, but I also love words, so writing appealed to me for that. And I think that I've always had a lot of empathy. I hope that doesn't sound conceited, but ever since I was a little girl, I think my emotional intelligence, my EQ was always higher than my IQ. And I think I could really relate to people, understand kind of what they were going through, and try to figure out how to help them through something. And so I think for all of those reasons, I chose a career that I think matched my skill set and my interests, and that's, I think, why I, have been somewhat successful in what I've done. What was the second half of the question?
What advice would you have for any
Oh gosh,
journalists?
yeah, well, it's so different now than it was when I was coming up. There were 3 networks back in the day, and the audience share was much bigger. The internet, as you probably saw in my 1994, in my BMW commercial, which I did a couple years ago. In 1994, I didn't even know what the internet was. You can revisit that online if you'd like, but you know, it was just a very, very different landscape. So what I tell young people who are interested in journalism is a couple of things. You know, journalism is a lot of different careers, right? It's a lot of different jobs within sort of the umbrella of journalism, so to speak. So I think, again, figuring out what you like to do, or do you like to write? Are you a visual person? Would you like to do video? You know, what sort of floats your boat in that department? And then, you know, I think there's so many outlets that you can do things on, and you should look for mentors, look for people whose style and values you feel kind of reflect yours, the kind of quality of the work that you want to do. And then just start bothering them, start submitting things, and if while you're doing that, you can start creating things even for your friends and family, for your own network on Facebook, right? I mean, here we have this opportunity to create that you never had. You know, you had to go to work for a local news station and you had to get your foot in the door, but now we have everything at our fingertips. So try to write if you're interested in writing, and start, you know, seeing if you can get interviews with people, or write about subjects and give your take and your opinion sometimes. You know, I think, so there are a lot of things that you can be doing while you're looking for the right place that is doing the kind of work you want to do, or a place that you feel would be a good environment for the kind of work you want to do, if that makes sense. You know, so if you want to do something with interviewing CEOs, well, maybe you won't be able to get to CEOs, but let's say you want to interview people in a whole host of professions. Maybe you contact LinkedIn and you say, hey, I've got these profiles. I think kids need to learn more, young people want to know more about a variety of professions. Would you be interested in running my things? You know, there's a lot of stuff you could do, but you do have to be very, I think, persistent and aggressive, and you have to network and get your foot in the door and come up with ideas and just not give up.
Be a hustler.
Yes, definitely. You know, I have to hustle, and I'm 59 friggin' years old, people, and sometimes I'm like, I'm a little tired of hustling, but in this day and age, you know, with so many choices and so many new platforms, you have to like figure out, well, how can I, you know, work my stuff in there? And, you know, folks here who I work with are great about figuring that out, but, you know, you can't really rest on your laurels, because you can no longer expect people to come to you as much. You have to get out to people, and you have to provide them with something that they can't really find anywhere else. So that's you know, I think Biz Stone, when I interviewed him for my book, my advice book, he said something like, find a need and fill it. So be aware of, like, sometimes I think, what would I like? What product would I like that isn't really currently being created? And then maybe take it from there.
Next user, Daniela Hobbs, says, hi Katie, my name is Daniela and I'm currently a senior documentary studies and production major at Ithaca College. I take classes in film, photography, and journalism, but am leaning towards documentary film production as a career. What is the number one piece of advice you would give an aspiring documentary producer who is getting ready to graduate and go off into the real world?
Well, you know, I think, again, you can do sort of micro versus macro, or small versus big. You know, I was talking to my colleagues here, and we were saying that, you know, find documentaries you admire and people who are really tackling issues that you care about. See if you can do an internship, and see if you can really get your foot in the door in some of those places. And then maybe get with like-minded people who are your age and team up with them. As I said, you know, you can now use your phone. You can edit on your phone. And maybe start trying to produce some documentaries yourself. And then take those documentaries and try to get them seen. And those will also help you if it comes to getting a job with a more established documentary filmmaker like Alex Kidney, for example. You know, Maria Cuomo Cole has done some great documentaries. And I think if you are persistent and you approach it and you don't give up and you don't like email them once and say, well, I guess it fell into a big black hole, but really write a thoughtful letter and keep writing. You know, at some point you're gonna make a connection, and someone's gonna say, wow, I remember when I was at ABC News in Washington, I was 22 years old, and I was the desk assistant, which meant I made coffee. I got Frank Reynolds, who was the anchor of World News Tonight, ham sandwiches. I Xeroxed, I answered the phone. I mean, it was really scut work. But one day I went up to a correspondent named John Farmer, who did 2020. And I had a whole list of story ideas that I thought would really be good for 2020. Now, I don't think he had many 22-year-old desk assistants going up to his office, knocking on his door and saying, here, I've written a sheet of story ideas and why I think they would be good. Well, ultimately, he ended up going to CNN, and I ended up being his associate producer, and then a reporter for him on his show. So I think just like, I think people want to hear from young people. They want to see that you've taken the initiative and that you're thinking and that you're taking advantage of these opportunities. I think people would be pleasantly surprised. Some people are going to not be that helpful and receptive, are going to be kind of jerks about it. But I think a lot of other people will be really impressed and say, thank you, these are good ideas, or can you give me some more research on X, Y, or Z? So I think, you really have to take advantage of opportunities. What question was that anyway? I can't remember. Did I answer that right?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, about the documentary film. Yeah.
To be an aspiring documentary producer, what should they get ready?
Yeah. So I guess that's what I would do. And there's so many outlets now for great work and web series and but from BuzzFeed to PBS. I mean, there are a lot of great outlets. So I think you just need to carpet bomb the place with your resume and then while simultaneously honing your skills.
Absolutely. Our next user is Eva Tucker, CEO of Centered Media, and she says, hi Katie, you are a mother and live a very full life. Do you get those, I don't know how you do it, comments? How have you had to get comfortable with forging your own unique path in life that not everyone understands?
I mean, I don't know. I guess I don't care if people don't understand it. So I have that going for me. Although, actually, that's not true. I do care what people think, probably more than I should. But I think. Well, what is the question exactly?
How have you had to get
comfortable with like? I mean, I've never felt uncomfortable with it. Honestly, I've never made apologies about wanting to have a career, wanting to contribute, using whatever talents and limited talents I may have to contribute to the conversation or to have an impact in some way, shape, or form. So, sometimes I feel uncomfortable that I don't do enough, what could I be doing to help mentor young women more? Well, this is a good way to do it. It's that, what could I be doing to help those who aren't fortunate to have really great educations? How can I help take up the slack for people, kids who are underserved in so many communities across the country, which I try to do some of, but I don't think I do enough of. So I guess the answer to the question, I've always felt comfortable. I'm very, very, I have a lot of energy. I have a lot of goals, and I have a lot of drive, and I'm very ambitious, and I've never made apologies about that either. Ambitious to have a fulfilling career and life, and to try to leave the world a little better off than it was when I got here. I don't know if I've done that, but it's something that is just part of my my DNA, I think.
You absolutely have done that.
Well, I don't know. Thank you. What are you going to say, Tiffany? Of course, poor Tiffany. She's like, yeah, whatever.
Our next user is Nicole Russell, 23, and she says, obviously, on-air talent is an important skill to have as an anchor, but off-camera, what else is important, would you say? Also, is there any truth to the statement of you have to be able to coil a mic wire, NBC tests you, and if you fail, you don't get hired?
I have never heard that. I have never heard you have to coil your mic wire, although I think I know how to do it at this point. Don't you think? Do you think I know how to do it? Yeah, I got a thumbs up there. I think a lot of the skills to be successful in news, television news, video news, print news, and really any profession are fairly universal. And I'd love to hear what you think of this, Tiffany. I mean, I think you have to be a good listener. You have to be a good collaborator. You can't be a credit monger. You have to really, I think, give credit where credit is due. And I think simultaneously, you can't blame people when things go wrong. You have to accept responsibility when you're culpable. And I think that it's just important to be thoughtful and approachable and, really care. You have to care about what you do because you take pride in your work and you want it to be good, you want it to serve a need. I think it's hard in this day and age because this sort of what's happening in our business where getting clicks don't necessarily equate with serving the public. And, I think they're actually often at odds. So I think just caring that what you're doing matters is really important behind the scenes too. And being fair and questioning your decisions and talking to people you respect. I have to do that, often in my job. And, I think sometimes you get it right and sometimes you don't. The best you can hope for is that you can learn from your mistakes.
Echoing all of that, and also to add perhaps to be collaborative behind the scenes with your team members.
Definitely.
Creating that kind of environment can really create better experiences behind the scenes and translate those for your cities.
And I also think not resting on your laurels, always looking at what's happening, what's happening in any particular field, being well-read and trying to stay on top of things without being too overreactive and knee-jerky about it, but saying, oh, they're doing this way, what can you learn from? And also, I think sometimes taking a step back, and I think that means not being attached or tethered to your devices all the time. I'm a big proponent of unplugging, even though my husband will be laughing when he hears this, if he hears this, which I doubt he will hear it. But I think there are studies that show that the part of your brain responsible for creativity actually is fired up when you're not stimulated by outside things. That's why all your good ideas come to you in the shower. At least they do for me. Probably because my showers are too long too. But so I think you have to kind of every once in a while take a step back and say, kind of think about the big picture rather than getting so sucked into your daily duties, I guess. I'm having a conference, apparently,
Our next user is.
Do you get live stuff too? Do you guys get live stuff or not really?
Yeah, no, it's
are these all live questions?
Real-time questions.
Oh wow. Okay, great.
So this is from Yuta here, and this user says, "Hi Katie, journalism today is very different from what it was a decade ago. However, the representation of Muslims in the media has been routinely stereotyped. Do you believe there's a need to adopt certain changes for conflict reporting and issues related to Muslims in order to counter Islamophobia?" Thanks.
Absolutely. I can't tell you how important I think that is. It's something that I have tried to do because I think these stereotypes unfortunately get reinforced in mass media, and it's critically important for us to counter those misconceptions, misperceptions, or false images of an entire religion. And so I remember actually when I did a online digital interview show for CBS back in, I think it was 2008 or 9. I was a little ahead of my time. And I interviewed some actors who were in a Canadian show called Little Mosque on the Prairie. And I said to them, I think we need the equivalent of a Cosby show for Muslims. This was prior to Bill Cosby's troubles. And so I remember saying that because I thought Muslim Americans, Muslims everywhere often, have the same hope and dreams as everybody else. And, I thought people don't understand things they're not familiar with. And if they were exposed to a Muslim family dealing with the same things we all deal with on a daily basis, it would be so helpful. What you cannot imagine the Islamophobic comments that greeted me when I landed I was taking a vacation and the plane landed, and I was like, oh my God, I can't even believe it. but it hasn't stopped me from interviewing people like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar or Dean Obadiah, who's a Muslim comedian, about the Muslim Comedy Festival, and just reminding people, about how wrong this is and how against American values this is. And I think that anytime I can try to provide insight, for example, there's so much conversation about Syrian refugees coming into the United States. We thought it was important at Yahoo to talk to somebody who is involved in the vetting process so people could truly understand that it takes 18 months to 2 years for any refugee to be allowed to come into this country and before they're processed. And I think sometimes people don't understand that. So I think sometimes information itself can be extraordinarily powerful, and it's up to us as journalists to make sure people are properly informed and they're not just dealing with, things that are said or campaign rhetoric, but they actually know the truth and the facts of the situation.
Our next user is SelfDoubt, and they say, I prefer to read or listen to the news, like many in my demographic, 30 to 39. What role do you see TV journalism playing in the future with so many youngish viewers?
Well, I think reading and listening to the news is really important too. I think any way you choose to be well informed is a wonderful thing. And I just read a Pew study that said most young people actually prefer reading text over video, which made me very upset actually, since I'm a video person. But having said that, I think there's some things that video cannot, it's just much more interesting and more engaging if it is video. I think, different formats work for different things. I love to read articles in The Atlantic, and I'm happy to read. I like to listen to podcasts, but I also think there is a role, not just for television, but for video, because I think increasingly these two are going to overlap with streaming and with, I think right now in this transition phase, it's important to be sort of everywhere you can, on television, online, and on social media, and just distribute it through as many avenues as you can so you can reach an audience. But I still think there will be a role for communication. I also think in our increasingly quote-unquote connected society, people still want to feel they have a human connection. So I think to be able to see a face and like, ding, or communicating with you is sometimes really, really invaluable. And to be able to see images, video images of Hurricane Matthew, it's one thing to read about it, it's one thing to even hear about it, but there are some things where the visual cannot be replaced either by the written word or the spoken word.
So our next user is Taylor Mead. She is an editorial fellow at Makers.com, an aspiring journalist and women's advocate. Hi Katie, I am an aspiring journalist working here as an editorial fellow for AOL's Makers. So it is so nice to be able to ask you a question, as you're one of our beloved makers. That being said, on your way to success, you faced a lot of criticism and hardship, but kept pushing forward and creating an inspiring path for other women and girls to follow. What advice would you give to your daughters and other ambitious girls so they can overcome any similar obstacles they may face due to their gender? Is there one piece of advice you wish you had learned earlier in your career that you would pass on to them? Thank you.
Wow, well, first of all, thank you. And my friend Dylan McGee created the whole Makers series, and I'm honored to be a part of it. You probably know Dylan, do you? Yeah, she's great. And you must be a maker, are you?
Not yet, actually, but
you should be. You're probably at under 30 maker or something, no?
Well, I think we're going to be speaking soon, but she was actually on our hashtag I'm a Mogul campaign, and she's wonderful.
She is. She's great, and I think everybody who puts himself out there, nobody escapes without criticism or people, even in some cases, trashing them. And I think if you don't stand for anything, you stand for nothing, and then you really don't make a difference in the world. So I think there are some times, and if, not everybody's going to like you, which was a hard lesson for me to learn. As I said, I've always cared about being liked and being, popular and all that stuff that I think we're programmed to really, really care about when we're coming up in the world, and I think it's also amplified because it's kind of my personality and my nature. So I think, you can't really pay that much attention to the critics. I mean, I think when it's constructive criticism and you think that there is something to learn from it, you should totally process it and learn from it. But, it's like the Teddy Roosevelt Man in the Arena speech, bloodied and unbowed, and I can't remember the whole speech, but I often read it, especially in times where I'm being criticized. If you are out there and you're playing the game, you have to, that means sometimes, getting an injury, and I think that it's just part of it. And I think I hope that my skin is never so thick that I grow completely desensitized to it, because I think that's what gives me my humanity and allows me to be a sensitive and caring person. But I think you just have to put it in perspective and focus on all the positive things that you're able to accomplish. And with going in, knowing that you're not going to ever please everyone, and if you do, I think it's because you don't really stand for anything.
Our next user is Amy M23, and she says, "What is your opinion on this entire election? This is going to be a great answer.
Oh, I don't know.
The way candidates have run their campaigns and the way the media have covered them, how do you predict this will affect future presidential elections and how campaigns are run/covered?"
Oh my gosh. Well, that's a very big, dense, meaty question. I'll try to answer it without going into a 2-hour dissertation. Well, I'm sickened by this election and how coarse the discourse has become. It makes me sad. It makes me, really upset about the state of the country. It gives me great anxiety, and it's not helped me sleep at night, actually, truly, in some cases. I feel like, in a weird way, I feel like that social media has contributed to a coarseness of the discourse, because everyone is able to say what they want, insult people, be cruel, be nasty, be outrageous. They're often rewarded for being outrageous, and that has somehow seeped into the national dialogue in some ways. So I hope we'll take a time out after this election, and really start to think about how we conduct ourselves in civil society, and if we want civil discourse to be an oxymoron, or we want to return to a time where we treat people with respect. I mean, people can disagree on a lot of things, but I think, the climate has become so charged and so disrespectful. It makes me sad. I mean, I think the media have, in some cases, I think, first of all, it's not a monolith. People think it's like the media, like Oz or something. And I think some organizations have acquitted themselves well, and others have not done as good a job. I'm not going to name names, but I do think, in this increasingly competitive environment, there's a really people are rewarded for ratings, and sometimes just because something is doing well in terms of ratings and people are watching it and staying engaged and can't turn away doesn't mean it's actually right for the public. And I think journalists their job is to really make these judgment calls and determinations on what should and shouldn't be allowed. And so, I think there's going to be a lot of soul searching and discussions after this campaign about, was the media collectively too willing to hand over their precious airtime to, one candidate in particular, and were they willing to bend the rules for one candidate in particular because otherwise they wouldn't have a competitive edge or be a part of the competition if they didn't do phone interviews, for example? And did media outlets pull their punches? Because in this day and age, there are so many of them that people don't want to lose access. The fastest way to lose access to any individual is to ask tough questions. and to make them uncomfortable. You know, they say a journalist's job is to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. And I think that as a result, you could only go so far, and you were able, and people put up with some of the conditions that a lot of people never would have tolerated. And I think that, you know, I think Donald Trump has made himself exceedingly available to the media, and Hillary Clinton has made herself exceedingly unavailable. And I think probably the right balance is somewhere in the middle. You know, I think this day and age where you don't need, they call it disintermediation, right? You know, people can talk directly to voters. So I think it's smart to use social media in some cases, maybe not at 3 in the morning, to express yourself and to have a connection with voters. And so that's a good thing. But I think there is still a really important role for prepared journalists who understand the issues, to have a forum with candidates and hold their feet to the fire and make them answer tough questions.
Our next question
That was a
comes
long
in.
answer. I'm sorry, is everyone sleeping?
Oh no, that was such wonderful insight. Yeah, my favorite question so far, actually. That was great. And so then the next one is from Diana Tomlin. She says, I'm such a fan and admire your strength and courage. Not only do I think you are the best broadcast journalist in the field, but I greatly admire that you're an activist to raise awareness about cancer. How would you say your past experiences, particularly the difficult moments, have shaped and changed you as an individual?
Well, I think that is that sort of primarily about my experiences with loss, maybe. Yeah, it sounds like, because in conjunction, as it, I guess, deals with Stand Up to Cancer. Well, you know, I think what is Muhammad Ali's service is the rent you pay for your time here on Earth. And you know, when I started having a more high-profile job, I got asked to do all these different events, dinners, and you know, emceeing and hosting lunches and supporting a lot of very, very worthy causes. But I think I didn't feel particularly connected to any of them because I hadn't experienced some of the things that the causes had been sort of established to face. So I think when my husband died of colon cancer when he was 42, and my sister Emily died of pancreatic cancer a few years later, it really gave me a cause I cared deeply about, that I connected with on such a visceral, emotional level, that I wanted to pour my heart and soul into this. And I think my life has been so traumatized by these experiences, and yet so enriched by trying to turn these horrible losses into something positive or something that I could channel my energies into. So, you know, I started by raising awareness about colon cancer screening, and also raising funds for colon cancer, which is the second leading cancer killer of men and women combined, but it was one of those cancers people just didn't really talk about. So I did that. I found it very gratifying. I still have people emailing me or writing me and saying that they were screened and they think it saved their lives. And you know, so to be able to have that kind of impact in the world was incredible. And then I wanted to help all kinds of cancers. I felt I was being kind of greedy about colons, and so that's when I joined forces with 8 remarkable women and started Stand Up to Cancer, which, you know, I do think it's the embodiment of the Margaret Mead quote, never doubt the power of a few determined, committed citizens to change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. I almost got that right, but not exactly. You know, where we have raised over $500 million for cancer scientists who are collaborating in dream teams so that they can make progress faster in a whole panoply of cancers and a whole variety of approaches. So, I mean, it's just amazing, and every time we have that event, every 2 years, I look at it, I look at the stars that show up, I look at the corporations and the everyday people who are supporting the work and think, wow, like, look what we built from absolutely nothing. And I think very few things, except for maybe your children, give you that sense of accomplishment and the sense that just through sheer determination and hard work and collaboration, we were able to establish this extraordinary organization that we hope and pray, we know it's already helping people because we have 2 FDA-approved drugs, and there's so much exciting things going on in cancer research because we're at such an inflection point with technology and data, basic biology and science and our understanding of genes and cells and epigenetics and all these exciting things. It's a confluence of things coming together. So, my fervent hope and prayer is that all this that we're doing is going to help so many people. And if someone's husband is diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer in the future when they're 41 years old, that hopefully they'll be able to either manage the disease through some of the progress that Stand Up and all cancer researchers are making, and hopefully even be cured of the disease altogether.
Our next user is Felicia Sabartinelli, and I think this may be one of the last few questions we can give. But she's multi-talented. She's a writer, poet, actress, artist, nonprofit admin, marketing, and sprinkle addict. Hi, Katie.
Sprinkle addict? I'll have to try some of those. We have some of those in the cafeteria. Sprinkles, like the sprinkles that you put on frozen yogurt? Those sprinkles? All right. I'll have to try that.
She says, hi, Katie. Something that has always fascinated me about journalism is having to oftentimes cover topics that don't resonate with your own personal feelings or go against your own beliefs. And I am wondering, what has been the most difficult interview to cover and why?
Gosh, well, I think that's where my empathy has helped me to try to, first of all, I think it depends on the issue, but you try to play devil's advocate no matter who you're talking to. If there's a position you can take that is as a contrarian, if there's some cases there aren't, but and I think you try to understand where that person is coming from, so you appreciate their point of view even if you may in fact disagree with it. And I think that those kinds of conversations are what we need to have more of. I think, in this current media environment, we have our own reviews reflected back at us. A friend of mine who's very smart said people are searching for affirmation, not information. And we need to be exposed to people who, A, have different backgrounds than we do, different socioeconomic statuses, and is it status or statuses? Yeah, thank you. I'm a little Yale-y. And different points of view, different life experiences. And I think that we live in these little echo chambers of like-minded individuals, and that's why we need to get out of those echo chambers. But I would say, I'm trying to think of the hardest thing I've ever had to cover, and I've had to cover a lot of controversial subjects, and I try to just listen and hear people out, and I also do try to challenge them when there's something that I think is worth challenging. It's a fine balance because I think it's important to be respectful. On the other hand, I think it's important to listen and do follow-up questions as well. We don't have enough of that. And so I try to tread that fine line whenever I can.
Thank you. Well, we have so many more questions coming in from users real time right now.
Should we do like one more? What
One
time
more?
is it? Are we
That's
okay?
good.
Are you okay to do one more?
Yeah, I would love to give this one final question. From Paige Knapp, she says, hi Katie, as a public relations professional, I know that the relationship between PR and journalism can be nuanced. How much of what you covered in your career came from a pitch, and how much was simply organic?
A lot of, I think both. I think I have a lot of story ideas that come from articles I've read or things that have made me think about something a different way. I read a lot, so a lot of times I get them from articles. But I think I've often talked to PR professionals and have told them that you don't want to really spoon feed a news organization a story, but sometimes it's helpful to say, we can connect you with an organization that can help you. Because I think sometimes people get overwhelmed, sometimes they get a little lazy, like they do in any profession. And if you're approaching them with a good story and a kind of interesting angle for a story or something that they haven't thought about, if you go the extra mile and one step further and say, you know, there's this organization here, they'd be willing to help you, or I can put you in contact with people who might be able to shed some light on the story, happy to do that. In other words, do a little of their work for them. I think that can sometimes be really effective. But, you know, I think, and it's interesting too, because I think, you know, you don't want to do something that's blatantly sort of promoting a brand or organization. But in some cases, it's okay to do that if you think it's worthy. So I think that you have to figure out the best approach for the best asset and the best outlet, and then find out who within that organization may really care about this issue. So you have to do your homework, I think, before you approach people with ideas. But I think, you know, a lot of people will want to do stories that are pitches if you pitch them in the right way. They don't sound too pitchy, as Randy would say on American Idol.
Well, thank you so much again. It was such an honor.
Really? I feel like, well, this was so nice. Thank you. By the way, we have a whole setup here. We have a lot of people from Mogul, a nice cameraman,
and Katie's team. Thank you so much, everybody, for this amazing.
Well, Liz is so cute. She's a big fan of yours. She has a friend who works with you.
Yeah, Joanna Hartford.
Yeah, and Liz has been telling me for months about Mogul, and I have been really looking forward to this. It's been a crazy time. I'm also working on a documentary for National Geographic about gender and how our whole concept of gender has gone through this massive transformation in a relatively short period of time. And it's I think, for people who have been conditioned to think in a very binary way their whole lives, it's a lot to wrap your head around. And so I'm trying to kind of learn more about it, and through my experience of becoming educated, help other people learn more about it. So between that and the campaign and everything else that I've been doing at Yahoo, it's been a busy time. So I'm really glad I got an opportunity to do this finally.
Absolutely.
And continued success with everything you're doing. And if I can ever help you or give you any advice, not that you need it, but you know, and I'd love to learn more about what you all are doing, because I think young women in particular are really hungry for advice, for mentorship, and for just even understanding different careers. I think sometimes we do such a terrible job in this country of kind of exposing people. You know, it's such a crapshoot. You graduate from college, you're like, yeah, I guess I'll do that, you know. But I think if people understood what different professions were, what they had to offer, the different roles within those professions, they could make much better decisions about where they want to spend such a huge amount of their time and energy. Because your work is, you know, you spend a lot of time at work every day, or working wherever you are. And so I really applaud what you're doing.
Thank you so much. And our now 18 million women are just so grateful to have had the opportunity to learn from you, and I'm so grateful, so thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks so much. Anyway, thanks everybody.
Thank
Bye.
you again. Thank you so
You're
much.
welcome.
Just
You're
wonderful.
welcome. Good.
Thanks,
Is that
everybody.
okay?
That was
Did I answer anything wrong?
Oh, no. That was so amazing. So many
Do you guys want
amazing
to? You have a little camera, right? You want to see pictures?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm hoping if it's okay to get a quick walking shot.
Sure. Oh, sure. I'm going to take this off just because I still look from behind.
So my computer died, so we're still rolling, like just the very end. Log us off.
Here. Looks just like Peter. She's so cute. She's got the cheeks. I can't stand it.
Oh, your answer is a political question.
Oh.
Well, so many were so good. Excellent.
One, two, three. One, two, three. Okay. Can I just grab one to you while?
Yeah. Okay, I'm not gonna do that. Do one where I'm scared. I don't know, that's my new thing.
Perfect.
That's my new favorite go-to pose.
So if we can get that from the other way.
Thank you.
Sure.
Could you say this as well?
Yeah,
I'll send it to you right
Do you wanna do a walking shot?
Yeah.
Sure. So you wanna, you want us to come towards you?
That'd be great if you come towards us.
Yeah.
Do you have a computer on you by any chance? Yeah, I do. Could you bring it to me? Sorry.
It's not connected to any wire, but.
We're meditating out here.
I was hoping she'd get to my questions.
You want us to keep walk back a little bit more?
I'm sorry. Yeah, there were so many questions.
Okay. Okay, here. Okay, no worries. Okay, anytime. So, yeah. So do you, relationship first? Oh, good, good, nice. Oh, wow. Now, do you use their content?
No, but we post a lot of content on Mogul because we're such a global audience.
Right.
We can leverage our platform listings.
Well, that's what I mean, that you use their stuff, and do they ever feature your stuff?
So, yeah, actually, we have partnerships with different
I was gonna say, you should get them to scratch your back too, right? Because you're giving them access to your audience.
You guys are awesome.
It was so
as a result.
The mics are still nice.
Yeah, I'm trying to turn this off and just, yeah. Alright. My computer like died at like very end, so I was like, oh no.